Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about
So
that.
we'll keep it a little light. This is my travel organ water bottle, by the way.
Speaking of which, have you seen the new Volkswagen bus?
The
The 2025?
no.
It's so
Nice.
cool. It looks like the old one modernized. It's very cool. Okay.
Are you wanting one? Is that why you're bringing it up?
Oh, I want one, but I will not have one. I almost bought a car last night by accident, so I do want to go down that path. So it brings me up to the next question, and we know a little bit about you and how you got here. You got in college. Why a podcast? Of all the things a person could do,
Well, I think a podcast is the best way to get a message out today. With social media in the mix. It takes both. It takes some social media savvy, and it takes good content. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I was thinking about the content that we plan to produce through the Grace Revolution, and I contrast that with a lot of leading podcasters, and they have good content, but I think in terms of life changing or life transforming content, I feel like we should be at the top of the pack, so to speak. Once we have the teachers and we have some very notable interviewees that we can discuss this wide topic of grace with, I think it's something that people can use in their daily lives in a way that a lot of podcasts just bring information that's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can use that. I think this can also be more transforming, or at least it should be. That's our goal.
right? No, yeah.
And we were talking about this the other day. Besides our talking and teaching format, which are kind of our regular monthly, I would love, in fact, you should bring this up at the conference next week, about having teachers in different areas of the country or even different parts of the world from different continents that actually have a Q&A that's actually live streamed from here. In other words, you and I, a combination of the two, could be kind of the epicenter of what's going out and coming in.
Yeah.
And there'll be different teachers having different voices or different experiences and how they can answer those very, very important life transforming questions.
Yeah, some of the guys already do that, and so to
in,
move into that
a,
would be.
But in a multiple.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They already do it, so you could just we can almost just piggyback on what they're already doing, and they've already got. I know one person down there. He's got people all 50, 75 people on any given Saturday morning or whatever night it is from all over the world, and we could just piggyback on that and then bring whatever audience this had.
Yeah,
could be part of that
and
too, and then it's already set and it's going.
That's great.
And it's I think he does. I'll have to find out. I think it's a Q, and he probably teaches and then does a Q&A. Okay, so you told me why a podcast. You told me why a podcast about grace. I go back about the podcast. You said something about that's where people get their information, and that's very true. And I'm an old guy, and it's tough. I don't read a newspaper anymore, but I'm still on Drudge, and I mean that's old. And it's pretty cool, but it's very, very old.
It's old, and I'm sure a lot of people don't even know about that.
Well, yeah, it's a news.
Not to go off on a rabbit trail,
it's just a news aggregator like
Okay.
Huffington Post or the main page of Huffington Post or the main page of Microsoft or whatever, and it has a little maybe a conservative bent maybe, but anyhow. You look at what, just without getting into the politics of it, in the mainstream, in the White House with the new administration, they are rotating some of the legacy news offices out, and who's coming in is podcasters and the new media. And
well, that speaks right to
that's my point. That's my
you're
point.
bringing up, yeah.
And I don't follow it a whole lot, but I have been watching it a little bit lately. The press room's full. It means full, standing room only. Podcasters, new media, the different media, the very niche media. It's not the people that are reaching 10 million. It's the people that are reaching 50,000.
Okay.
But they have dedicated
So there's hope
people.
for us. Hey, maybe that should be a goal.
There you go.
Dave.
There you go.
Maybe that should be our goal.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm not the one going to Washington, D.C. No. When we get our map out every year and we say, okay, where are we going this year?
Oh,
we
come
put an
on.
X through Washington, D.C. No.
Yeah, I prefer to steer clear of politics myself.
Yeah.
But
But
have our hands full with this.
that's where people, my son-in-law, he watches, listens, whatever he does, the number one podcast for 3 hours a day, or a week, whatever it is, however often it comes on, and that's where he gets his information. And people get their information from a different place. So this is a natural place. And one thing we talked about in the Grace Movement a lot, at least people I have talked to, is how do you reach people today? How do you reach the younger set that aren't in church, didn't grow up in church, aren't listening to Christian music? This is where you do it. You do it with the podcast. You're not, for the most part, we're probably not going to reach out. We will. The target audience that I see is not the old people, though there'll be some on the fringe. It's the young people. It's the young people. This is where the grace message will get out today.
Yeah. I would even add to that. I would say English-speaking people throughout the globe, because podcasts also make it convenient for older people that can't get out to listen in. Now, they haven't found podcasting yet, but give them another 10 years, they will.
But I don't think it's limited to English-speaking people. I mean, the biggest movement in the Grace movement right now, as what I understand, is the Chinese home church. Grace School of the Bible, last time I heard, that they were sending thousands and thousands of things to there, and it's moving. I mean, you can watch the Grace, you can watch religion, but also the Grace movement. It's moving west, and it's beginning to leave America. And move into China and Japan.
That'd be the east.
Yeah, but it's moving west. It's moving.
West of here.
It's moving from east to west,
Gotcha.
right? It started in Jerusalem, and then in Paul's day, it was in Asia, and you just barely got to Rome. Okay, after Paul's day, then it moved to Europe and England, and then it came to America. And now where's it going?
I see.
It's continue. It's amazing how it moves west.
That's interesting. Well, the reason I said English is because we speak English.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're not going to.
We don't speak.
It'll be
we
English.
Don't speak Chinese.
It'll be English speaking people following us, but again, it's amazing what's out there and the thirst for good information. There is a segment of religion out there. And I'm going to just assume, people that self-identify as Christians, as saved, and I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt on that one, that have left or are confused because they don't understand what's happening today. They're back under the law, what we talked about. They don't understand what God's grace is and what it really is and what it's not. A lot of people claim God's grace is doing this, that, and next thing, when that's not what God's grace is doing. And so what happens is you get confusion and you get a group, an organization that really doesn't have a lot of life anymore and doesn't know how to respond to the culture.
Yeah, you just triggered another part of my answer.
That's me. I'm a trigger.
Why am I doing this? I lived nearly a half century. Wow, that's sobering to hear that.
I know what you're going to say.
That.
I know what you're going to say.
Confused.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
From being in a church. And it's like, what was I doing? I was kind of wasting my time in a way.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, there were good relationships that were developed, but I didn't realize until about 8 years ago where the gospel was found in the Bible. Now, there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
So, and then when I fully understood grace, I fully understood the gospel.
Yeah.
And I fully understood
I told you when
what God is about.
When I went to that men's Bible study, 400 people, we break into 10 or 12, and we studied Romans. And then we were talking about the gospel. And finally, after 2 or 3 weeks, I said, guys, let's just define what the gospel is. Nobody could do it. Nobody can even tell me where to find it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, it's throughout the whole Bible.
And I had a conversation with an elder in a church, and I referred to him as the alpha elder because he had the most money in the church. And I had a conversation, and I said, now, I'm not saying this in a critical way because I didn't know the answer to this either, although I wasn't a teacher either, or a pastor. And I said, do you know where the gospel is found in the Bible? And he just looked at me like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And he was a teacher in a church.
Mm-hmm. Now, for anybody that's listening right now and said, well, tell us, Romans 3, Romans 4, 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4, Jesus died for your sins, was buried, and rose again the third day for your justification. That's the gospel that saves today. All the other stuff that you've been told, that doesn't save you.
It's religion.
That's what saves you.
So anyway,
let me follow up.
I got to push this button just because we're getting really, where is it? It's not working. Why is it not working? We have so many technical difficulties here.
I mean, the first one, we're...
That's what we do.
Let's try that.
Thumper Dave
Don't
Go.
ever
Did you hear
again.
that? Did you hear that?
Yes, I did, and I never want to hear that again.
Well, you're going to hear them all right now because
Go ahead.
here we go. So this can be used.
Go ahead.
This can be used because we're getting really deep, really fast, but it's important. So I'm glad we're doing it.
Go ahead.
But we're trying
ahead.
to like,
Thumper Dave Go.
What did that say?
Thumper Dave. Thumper
Yeah.
Dave go.
Yeah.
So what the thought would be, guess for the teaching would be Thumper Dave. So we're taking a negative and we're switching it into a positive, because we, without apology or without shame, are not afraid to talk about God's words, the Scripture. So this is a way to just kind of keep it light, but yet it's still a serious subject. So we're trying to balance education with some entertainment. And this is my feeble and lame attempt of making it entertaining, besides just whatever comes out of our mouths. So you want to hear it again?
No.
Thumper Dave Go.
He altered my voice. That
I
doesn't even sound like me.
I don't ever want to hear that again.
That doesn't sound like me.
Oh my gosh. I don't even want to know how much time you guys spent coming up with that, designing it. I mean, I hope there weren't meetings, and I hope there wasn't a budget allocated
There was a
to it.
brainstorming session.
Oh my goodness.
Well, anyway, you're laughing. So
It was a storm.
It must have done
It
something.
was a
right?
storm.
So anyway.
All right.
So
Well,
anyway, where were we?
You
Let's
brought
get back on
something up.
track.
So let me ask you this. To you. Now, I talked to somebody about something the other day, and I said, what I don't want, don't give me the answer that I can Google.
Okay.
Okay? Don't give me the answer that your wife might tell me,
Okay.
that you think I want to hear.
Okay. Are you getting personal now?
Well, no, but and so when I asked this person,
I guess
this,
you have been personal.
They gave me an answer for 5 minutes, and then I started to laugh. He goes, "What are you laughing?" I go,
Okay.
"Well, now we're finally getting to the point. The first 5 minutes I could Google,
Okay.
so I don't want to know. Don't give me a Google answer.
Okay.
What does grace mean to you?"
Besides freedom from fear, which is what we were talking about earlier, grace means I'm covered in Christ's forgiveness that is only found through the cross. So at the cross, he paid it all. Past, present, and future sin. Because the Bible's very clear. We all fall short. No one is righteous. So to answer that is to answer, and I'm a visual person, and I assume everybody else are visual learners. When I see the cross and I see those two thieves on both sides of the cross, I see one that mocked Christ on the cross. Well, if you're who you say you are, if you really are God, well then just take yourself off the cross. And he was a mocker and he was sarcastic. Whereas the other one, doing the same thing, accused of being a thief or a murderer, could see that Christ lived a perfect life, and he was God in the flesh, and he was falsely accused.
He was falsely accused.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Falsely accused of a crime. And when Jesus saw that, he said, "You will be with me in paradise." And then shortly after that, he died. And he said, "It is finished." He never went to a church, probably, or was never a member of a church, probably. Well, that's an assumption. We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But
We don't know. But the point is, it wasn't based on his performance,
yeah.
which is what causes people fear, like we've talked about before. So that is the long, extended answer. And I've had conversations with people, and I said, think about it in today's terms. What if it was today, and the cross was happening today, and people were, ignoring that, and Hitler was on the cross, and Hitler. I know this is so jolting and shocking to people when I say this. And he was the one, not the one mocking,
yeah.
but the one
Yeah.
that understood.
It gets people's sensibilities angry.
Yeah, and he trusted
Yeah.
at that moment. And Jesus said, "You will be with me in paradise."
Mm-hmm.
And people have said, "That's not fair." And I said, "You're right, it's not fair. But no one is righteous. No one is,
That's right.
So, but yeah, that ruffles feathers. I know I've seen it in people, but it really is a beautiful example with tremendous hope.
Oh, absolutely.
Tremendous hope.
Absolutely.
Now, this is more in your area. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a preacher. Don't want to be.
Well, I'm not.
But
right.
I have life experience
That's what
that makes me passionate, and I'm not ashamed to share that.
Well, yeah,
So-
that's great. And that was the
yeah.
question I asked. What does it mean
Yeah.
to you? Not to me, not to Google, not to whatever. So what's my next question here? Oh, who do you want to appeal to? Who's your target demographic?
Well, I think people that were confused like me, either whether they're in the church or maybe they've had it because they can't get their answers to their questions. And we provide that outlet in I don't know if safe is the right word, a safe place, an easy place to receive the information, the privacy of their home, by themselves, just with them and an iPhone, YouTube podcast. That would be the specific target market.
And I really hope people are not using an iPhone to do this though, because like I told you, Adam and Eve had an apple, and that turned out poorly.
Hey, now you're getting personal. I have an orchard. I'm an apple
I know
guy.
you do. I'm Team Android, so.
Team Android, Team Apple.
So.
There's pros and cons to both.
No, I think that's good too. So, and you're very right. When the thing about fear too, it's Romans 6 tells us that we have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear. Now, the opposite of that, the juxtaposition to that, is the Holy Spirit, and that's the way God looks at it.
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
I was going to take it.
So
away.
go ahead.
I was going to take it away, but really, what I like is some wire cutters. He can keep the box, and I'll just cut the wire. What's a plug? I can unplug it. I know where the plug is.
Okay, Thumper Dave. What are you saying? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Was it? Oh yeah.
I remember.
When a person puts themselves back under the law, that's exactly what they've done. Is put themselves back under that performance-based system or fear.
You got to explain yourself, because
Or fear.
I don't think a lot of people are going to understand that put themselves back under the law. You're talking about Moses. You're talking about,
no, I'm talking about a performance-based acceptance system. When people get up in the morning and say, "Today I'm going to do this, so God is happy with me,"
Oh, okay.
and it could be the Ten Commandments.
But you mentioned the law. So
Yeah, we call
I think
it though.
Some people think.
When Paul talks about Paul, who's the apostle of the Gentiles, when he talks about the law, he sometimes talks about the Ten Commandments, But more often than not, he's referencing just that performance-based acceptance system that we put ourselves in, because the very context, the very issue with the Ten Commandments is that you are good enough to do whatever the Ten Commandments said, and it's 635 or whatever it is. But we talk about Ten Commandments, okay? And Paul talks about that in Philippians. He put all his faith and his confidence that he could do this. He says, regarding the law, I was blameless. He wasn't sinless. When I sinned, I could get right with God in my own energies. And that's where most Christians are today. They say, okay, yeah, maybe grace saved me, maybe they got that message. But then they leave the grace and they at the cross, and they leave the cross behind. And they say, okay, now that I'm saved, I need to go do this, and all these other things, so that God's happy with me.
So I stay in good standing.
Yes, I stay in good standing. And it ruins people's lives. I know somebody very dear to me that I love dearly, went through some marital issues and actually worked at a church, and was told, if you do, the pastor, she and her husband met with the pastor where she worked, and the pastor said, if you guys will do this, this, and this, God will bless your marriage, and it'll be great forever. By all accounts, it appears they did do this, and then, and guess what? It got worse. Because what were they doing? They were trying to perform for God. Now, I mean, for whether or not they were trying to do it for each other is another story. But performing for God didn't work, because that's not God's program today, by the way. There are some things that you can do that will make your marriage better, but a bad marriage is a bad marriage.
Right.
You talked about that a little bit about that earlier. So what happened? That person said, "Now wait a second. The person in authority told me if I did this, God would bless my marriage. My marriage fell apart. My life fell apart. She hates God. Every time I try and talk to her about it,
There's a lot of people like that.
yeah. And while I don't agree with her, I understand why she does that. So now I try different ways to get there. So that's not an academic. That's where the law, this idea that I can go out and make God that
Now wait. What you talking about?
You are going to need to stop.
I had to stop it, and I'll tell you why I had to stop it. Because there are some people that are listening to this right now, and they're saying, what's wrong with the law? If we didn't have the law, there would be more crime in the streets. There would be more robberies, more
Yeah, but we're not talking about
murder.
that law.
I know that. That's why I said, what you talking about?
Yeah, people. Right, but that's
because I think we need to balance.
engage.
I think we need to balance the conversation a little bit, because there are some people in academia, in your world, as a teacher or a host to teachers, they understand the law thing from a performance standpoint.
It's a performance-based acceptance system.
Yeah, as a religious person or as a Christian,
Yeah.
But we have to also balance it with, the law is good because it brings about the need for a savior. It brings about the need for an orderly society.
Well, right, but if we're talking about saved people now, in the context what we've been talking about is people that are saved.
I know, but I want to just kind of balance it, because there's some people that are listening to this, they're not saved, and they don't even know what maybe they don't even know what that means.
Well, this conversation means nothing to them. Then this conversation means nothing until they put their trust.
But you're asking me,
in Jesus.
and I'm the host of the talking part, and we don't really get into this stuff.
Right.
The teaching Bible stuff as much. I'm not saying that won't come up, but there are, we just need to balance and assume, because we want to have that audience of people that are confused, and we don't want to make them more confused. That's my point.
Right.
So they need to understand the law versus the law, if that makes sense. The law of the Bible versus
Well, it
the
does,
law
but
of,
but again,
of the county, the state.
Right. Well, I understand. Right. I understand, and this is something you guys can edit out later. But if somebody,
no, I don't think we need to.
What I'm about to say.
Yeah. Okay.
And you'll see what you'll look at Eduardo and say, yeah, we're going to edit that.
Okay, that's fine.
If somebody doesn't understand that we're not talking about the civil law, there's more fundamental problems.
Well,
when we talk about law for a behavior in relationship to God, if a person can't understand that we're not talking about obeying the speed limit, not murdering people, paying your taxes, whatever it is, that's a person who needs to sit down and think about what's going on.
Well, yeah, and we're not trying. I mean, we don't want to insult our audience.
That's why I say
But
you can edit it out.
I'm just saying. I am just saying clarity is important, and
I will tell
we don't want to
everybody.
assume. We don't want to assume anything.
I will tell everybody here that's listening: obey the civil law. Now that gets me in trouble on the other side. Because, well, people say, well, you shouldn't obey the law if it goes against. And I was not very popular in the grace movement and in religious circles during COVID. Because the government said we shouldn't meet, and I was fine with that. Everybody wanted to go quote Hebrews and not understanding what Hebrews was about. And everybody got all angry. Okay. So we should obey the civil law. Now, when it does conflict with the Bible, we shouldn't. But, I mean, I think both sides could, now we're into politics, I think both sides could take a thing of that. The Bible says, when the Bible talks about, when Paul talks about, again, the apostle, your apostle, the apostle of the Gentiles, when he talks about how to deal with the legal system, he says, pray for your leaders. When Paul used the legal system, he was in a lot of trouble. He was about to get killed by the Jews, and he said, just so you guys all know, I'm a Roman citizen. I don't think you can be doing what you're doing. He appealed to that civil law and said, look, you need to treat me the way the Roman law says I need to be treated. Jesus said, give unto Caesar what is to Caesar's. I think that's a message most
now you're
Christians.
talking about taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is why I have this.
Thumper Dave, go.
Okay, so did you have any other questions, Dave?
Yes. Where are the side cutters? Where are the wire cutters?
So, because
Yes,
we have another
yes.
podcast to do. We have another podcast to do.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we
Do
hit
you-
all the fine points.
do you have somewhere to go?
No, but maybe Eduardo does.
So I got two more questions for you.
Okay.
I think like half an hour more.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
We'll finish up in a half hour, and then we'll break, and then we'll do his. Okay.
like his intro.
He has. We're going to do his podcast. Right now, we're just kind of trying to get.
Well, this won't take a half hour. This is just two questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll take a break. So
Okay.
we're getting tired.
Beautiful.
Okay. So you've kind of answered this, but
Okay, what is it?
okay, and in the interest of time, how do you hope to affect your listeners or viewers? Are they listeners or are they viewers? What do we call them?
Listeners, viewers, they're going to see and hear.
Okay, because I know a lot of people
This is
listen.
all videotaped.
I know a lot of
This is all
people just
videotaped.
listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you hope to affect them? Just generally, not any individual, but just when you look at in 5 years down the road, what do you hope that the effect of this has been?
I would hope that, as I mentioned earlier, that it's transforming to their life in some way. Their fear is lowered. They're living life with more abundance, joy,
Oh, thanks.
and without the fear of the future. That doesn't mean, as I mentioned, that there aren't troubles that come into our lives, but it'll help them to manage them better because they know the big picture. They know that there's this life, there's a life beyond, and that gives them a peace that passes all understanding. Yeah,
Okay, here's the money question.
the money question. Okay, what is it?
Do you want a big audience that's entertained or a smaller audience that's edified?
Both.
That was the third answer.
Yeah, because I think that you've heard the say, go big or go home, and I think the content is important enough, transforming enough. There's no reason why people won't be brought in, whether it's the guests, whether it's, and I'm not saying that because of me or you, because I'm only doing this is because when I looked around, I didn't see anybody else that was willing to do it. So I'm doing it because by default, more than anything. It wouldn't bother me a bit if there was somebody that would be willing to do this and sit in this chair that really wants to do it. So it's not about me. It's about the message. It's about the content. It's about the listener being edified and having that transforming life change in a more fearless mindset. because their future is secure.
There you go.
And that, I believe, has the potential, not because of me, but because of the content and because of the author of Grace that we've talked about.
It's not about it's not about us. It's about the content. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break. So we'll have some sponsors that we really appreciate and love here, and some products we all use. And if you sign up, if you
And water.
And water.
It's good to hydrate.
And water.
Hydrate.
So
Yeah, sponsored by.
yeah.
And-
We're sponsored by Hydrate.
And once hydrate. we have to figure out a sponsor on water and
That's right.
hydration. But yeah.
So